Hello. If you don't know who Lori Vallow is, you're gonna. So there's a trial going on right now. It's week 3, so I'm a couple weeks behind because I decided to do this, which is going to involve recapping each week of the trial, 25 to 40 minutes at a time, so that you don't miss anything. And I really don't want to miss anything. This is the most interesting case that has ever been a case. I guess it depends on your definition of interesting. I really like crazy, and this has a lot of crazy. So let's get right in, huh? All right, here we go. Who the heck is Lori Vallow? Lori Vallow was a 2004 Mrs. Texas contestant. Nice. Good job, Lori. She was also on The Price is Right. Ah, get it, girl. So cool. She did pretty good too. I guess she went shopping a lot. And she was a mother of 3. Here's her with her daughter Tylee. Yes. And then we've got a picture of her adopted son JJ on the left, and Tylee again in the middle, and then her brother Alex. And she married like 4 guys. The 4th husband was Charles. This is Charles. Look at his muscles. He's so strong. And then that's JJ again there. So yeah, she had it all, man. She had 3 kids. I don't have a picture of Colby Ryan. Sorry. But we've got JJ and Tylee. We've got a hot, buff husband. She's hot. She's killing it with the pageants and The Price is Right. Well, why is she on trial? I don't understand. Well, she's charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder on JJ and Tylee, and 3 counts of conspiracy in the deaths of Charles, her hot husband, Alex Cox, her brother, and Tammy Daybell. Who's that? That is her lover's wife. So Chad in red is her lover. And Tammy. Guys, Tammy looks like the type of person who would just like, I don't know, be hanging out at a library like, so stoked. I love the library. You go on a hike and like, you didn't really see anything cool. She's like, great hike, guys. I could totally see Tammy teaching Sunday school and being really good at it. She just seems like a super sweet person. And look at this smile. I can't with her smile. She's just like, about it. Let's go. She seems really cool. But, okay. Anyway, so those are the charges. 2 murders, 3 conspiracy for murder, and grand theft. This trial is going to be 10 weeks. 10 weeks. They've set aside time for it to be 10 weeks. But they have a lot to prove. You have to prove all of this. So, anyway, should we just get into this trial? Yeah. All right. First, let me show you what Tammy looks. Not Tammy. I'm sorry. What Lori looks like now. She's trying. That's just my favorite one. She's really, really trying. And if there's ever a prison pageant, she has a chance, especially if the pageant starts following the same rules as Miss America, where they don't judge on looks. She's got a chance. Anyway, let's see if she did it or not. Okay, day 1, opening statements. Here we go. All right. And by the way, the lawyer team for the prosecution is headed by Lindsay Blake, and she gives these opening statements. All right. And I don't take a lot of notes on opening statements because they're not evidence. Just listen, and maybe they can sway you one way or another with logic and reasoning and schmoozing or something, but they're not evidence. Sounds good. Okay. One quote I did write down, though. It sounds like a tagline almost. So Lindsay Blake, she says, this is her opening statement. Day 1, money, power, and sex. That's what this case is about. It didn't matter what obstacles she had to remove to get what she wanted. It didn't matter if the obstacle was a thing or a person. Fair enough. Okay. I would have added some things there, like her own children or something else. But it's pretty strong. It's pretty strong. But she gave me a new pet peeve with her opening statements. If you want to go and listen to it, you can totally go and listen to it, but it's going to do the same thing to you. It's a curse because she goes through all of the things you're going to hear about, but she says, you're going to hear from this person, blah, 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 and you're going to learn, blah, 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 from so-and-so. And then you're gonna learn, and it's just like, I don't need you. Can you just tell a story? A really good example of an excellent opening statement is Chandler Halderson's prosecutor. I think his name's William Brown. And I mean, that guy just told a story. He started it out by saying, hey, you know, my opening statement isn't evidence. It's not evidence. But I'm going to tell you what happened from our perspective. And then he just does it. He's like, Chandler was doing this whole thing where he's lying about being a scuba diver and going to school and getting a job at SpaceX, and he's lying about all this stuff, and then he killed his parents. And we didn't have to hear him say, you're going to hear from so-and-so a bajillion times. So thank you, William Brown. I hope I got your name right. But anyway, that's my new pet peeve. You will hear. Oh, just quivering. Okay. Now, the other problem I had with Lindsay Blake, mind you, it's already pretty shocking charges. That Lori killed her 2 kids, and her husband and her brother potentially had something to do with the death of her lover's wife. But it's all shocking, don't get me wrong, but she didn't prep the jury for the real stuff that will make their jaw drop. And I think opening statements was a really good time to do that. So I'm going to do it for you. So buckle up. This case involves portals to other dimensions, reincarnation, evil spirits, the ability to cast out demons telepathically, burning, binding, destroying bodies so that the demon can't get back inside. What else? Multiple creations. People being reincarnated that used to be friends with Hitler. Oh, and zombies. This case has zombies. So when we get there, you're not gonna be surprised. I heard that the jury was staggered when these topics came up during testimony, and they couldn't really focus. So I think it would have been good to give a bit of a heads up. Anyway, so the defense, their opening statement was given by Jim Archibald, who seems like a pretty cool guy. He's very calm, and he's got a really tough case. He's gonna have to Jose Baez this thing. That's the lawyer for Casey Anthony, who definitely did it and got away with it. But on the other hand, he could have been like Letitia Stouch's defense attorney, whose opening statement literally involved the sentence, "I can't just quit. We have to try." So it could have been worse, but he did say something really interesting. He said, "We can't agree on what happened, and it's the jury's job to help us decide what happened." I really appreciated that. I thought that was really good. But then I started thinking about it more, and I thought, but Lori is right there, and she didn't die. She's right there. She could tell you what happened, and then you could tell a story from her perspective, and then spend the whole case backing that up. But instead, they're just gonna spend all of their time and energy objecting to witnesses and objecting to evidence and objecting to testimony. And that's all they're gonna do. And they're just gonna try to cast doubt on things that are the most crucial. But they don't have a story for her, and that's why Casey Anthony got away with it, guys. She had a lawyer who believed her story, and he told her story. I don't think Lori even gave this lawyer a story. I really don't. I don't think that she did. Anyway, we'll get there. Okay. Anyway. The first witness. You ready? I like this guy. Brandon Boudreaux, who I don't think I had heard of before his testimony. And he's the first witness. And that's gotta be really daunting to be the first witness in a case like this. And it's his, like, aunt. So it's super awkward. But let's get right into what he's got to say. Oh, let me show you a picture of him really quick. This is him and his wife, now ex-wife, Melanie. Yeah, they're super active, super young, super happy, and they were young, happy, and active for a long time. He would do family Christmases with Lori's family, all the important holidays they did with the families. He still has 3 kids, and his 3 kids got along with Lori's 3 kids. Heck, his younger boy, Braxton, would play with JJ all the time. Whenever they had get-togethers, Braxton was right there for JJ. JJ has autism. So Braxton was always making sure, all right, you don't want to climb up on that. You don't want to knock that over. You'll get hurt. Oh, don't get into that. That's mom's. You know, all that kind of stuff. So I think Brandon really enjoyed watching that relationship between Braxton and JJ Bloom. So he got really emotional during certain parts of his testimony, especially anytime he had to say JJ's name, he choked it out. It was really sad. But anyway, so he had a really good marriage with Melanie, cutie pie, from the beginning of their marriage up until about 2018. But it wasn't till Christmas of 2018. So Melanie really looked up to Lori, because Melanie's mom died, and Melanie's aunt is Lori, so her mom's sister. So she started to view Lori as a mother figure, more like a role model. I mean, how would you not look at this woman with 3 children. She's like 30, 40 here as a role model. How wouldn't you? Anyway, so Melanie looked up to Lori. They would all go to church together. They went to the same church. And Brandon was so close with the family that when it was time for Tylee to be baptized into their church, Charles, for some reason, Charles, for some reason, didn't feel comfortable doing that. So Brandon went ahead and baptized her, and it meant a lot to him. So, yeah. Then Christmas of 2018 happened. I'm super thirsty, I'm sorry. So Christmas of 2018 happened. And it used to be like, you'd get together with the whole family. It'd been a couple years since you had a real get together, but everything feels the same, like nothing changed. You know, that's how it used to be. That's a family thing. It's a good family thing. But then 2018 Christmas, and things just seemed weird. And this is Brandon's perspective. Things just seemed weird. Melanie got really into going to church all of a sudden. And she wasn't super into it before, but now she was really into it. Super into it. Every Sunday. Almost every day she felt like she needed to go to church every day. That's crazy. The temple every day. Whoo! And then she started talking about the world ending soon. She started feeling like she needed to be a doomsday prepper, like she wanted to stock up. And Brandon's like, nah, you don't need to do that. And there was this new person that came to Christmas 2018. And this person's name was Melanie Gibb. And we'll get to Melanie Gibb. But Melanie Boudreaux, Brandon's wife, has this whole new doomsday idea going on. And then January 2019, Lori starts accusing Charles of infidelity, and she texted Melanie Boudreaux, Brandon's wife, about that. And that was a new thing. They had been doing fine until that. And then June, Brandon's grandpa died. And all of a sudden, Melanie couldn't give a rip about Brandon's grandpa, and she didn't want to go to his funeral. And Brandon's like, what? Why not? Why don't you want to go? This turned into a huge argument, and Melanie accused Brandon of being a homosexual, and she could prove it because he has a video of him dancing at a bar, and there's like a pink pony or something. I don't really get what that was about. But and he's hacking Lori's computer. And she knows because Lori showed her that Brandon was hacking her computer. This is in June 2019. And the homosexual thing, God revealed that to her, to Melanie. God revealed that to Melanie. He's a homosexual. So then she started talking about divorcing him, and Brandon's just like, poor Brandon, he's just like, what? What are you talking? I had 3 kids with you. What are you talking about? So anyway, that fight, they went to bed. Next morning, gross. Things are weird. Brandon was aware that Lori and Charles were going through all this, so he calls Charles, and Charles and Lori have been going through this divorce thing themselves for like 6 months now. You know, it started in January 2019, and Brandon calls him, and he's like, man. And in this part of his testimony, he's like trying not to absolutely break down. But he's telling Charles, you know, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. Sucks. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. And then July 11th, Charles is shot by Lori's brother, Alex. Oh, what? And then, in September, Melanie and Brandon are divorcing, and they split up, or they sold their house. And then Brandon finds out that JJ and Tylee are missing. And then he finds out that their bodies were found. And he drove all the way from Phoenix, Arizona to Rexburg, Idaho to identify JJ. Because JJ's grandparents weren't emotionally prepared to do that. So, anyway. Dealing with the whole divorce thing with Melanie. Custody was super weird. What the heck is up with this? So she said she was afraid of him and she didn't want to let him in her house, but she would allow him to like put the kids to bed and then just get the fuck out kind of thing. So in October, he's living in this new house in Arizona. He takes the kids to school or daycare. He just said he dropped them off. I don't know where they went. And then he went to the gym. And then he came back home. It's his new house in Arizona. He sees a Jeep Wrangler that looks a lot like Tylee's Jeep, because she did this thing where she didn't have the tire on the back of the Jeep. They usually have them, but like you never see a Jeep Wrangler without the tire on the back, like ever. But he sees what looks like Tylee's Jeep parked pretty close to his car. You know, he parked next to his house, and there's this car there. He's all, is Tylee here? What's going on? I'm so confused. And then he sees a barrel of a gun come out with a silencer on it. And he gets shot at. And he peels off and he calls 911. I was just shot at. What is going on? What the heck? He knew the VIN number of the car because he was an insurance agent. And at one point, Charles had asked him to run the VIN number to see if he could get them any good rates on Tylee's Jeep. Nice guy. But he had the VIN number. He had it saved. So he gave the VIN number to the police. So, and then he heard about Tammy dying. Chad Daybell. Who the heck is Chad Daybell? So then he goes and he searches Chad Daybell and he finds out who that is. And he's feeling really weird about all this stuff. So, that's the majority of Brandon's testimony. I think he was a really good one to start with. I'm just going to say that. Because he gave us like an outsider's really close perspective without things going off the rails right away. It didn't get too crazy too quickly. And he was a very genuine witness, so the jury's more inclined to take every witness more seriously from this point on, just because he was so clearly genuine. But they're going to notice when other witnesses are not emotional about the kids and things like that. So ones who should be, but they'll notice that. There's no right way to, I mean, there's definitely a lot of wrong ways to behave, but there's no right way to behave about all this stuff, because you could be very professional and just like, yeah, I've dealt with this emotionally and I'm not gonna cry. Not crying isn't a bad thing, but now the jury at least got a sense of what a real genuine witness feels like, and I think that's a really good starting point for them. But just reflecting on what he had to go through, I hope I did an okay job telling his perspective, but he had a great family. And all of a sudden, his wife just went insane and left him and took the kids away from him mostly. And he lost his brother-in-law or uncle-in-law, who he was close to, and he lost his cousin, JJ, who he saw more as a nephew probably because of the age gap, and his son's close family friend. You know, Tylee, he lost 3 family members and his whole family because of a doomsday thing? What? So we're going to learn more about the background of all of that happening. That's going to be, it's wild. So, but I really feel for Brandon, because once we get deeper into this, you're going to see that he really lucked out. He got really lucky that Melanie Boudreaux didn't get further into this than she did, because if she'd gotten further into this, he might have died and his kids might have died. So, anyway. Yeah. One more thing. I really don't like most of Lori's family living. Wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. But I'd give Brandon a hug. I really would. He seems like a genuine person. Anyway, moving on. The next witness number 2, is Kay Woodcock. Kay Woodcock. Let's show you Kay. Here's Kay. All right. Kay and her husband Larry. And there's JJ. So Kay is the grandmother of JJ. JJ's parents, her son, were addicts. So JJ, when he was born, he had drugs in his system. When that happens, they tend to do a thing called temporary placement, where they put the child with a loving home that doesn't have drug addiction issues. And he did spend a long time in the ICU getting him straightened out. Medicine. So he was living with Kay for a while there. I wrote the dates down. I just gotta find them. Give me 1 second. Okay, so Kay and Larry took care of JJ July 2012. He was born like a month earlier than that. Oh, May 12th. He was born in May. And Kay and Larry took care of him starting July 2012. His original name was Kanan, which is so cute, but we'll just call him JJ. When Lori and Charles, they got to thinking, we'd like to have our own kid, because Tylee was the daughter of Lori and her previous husband, Joe Ryan. I'm not pointing at them, I'm sorry. But her previous husband, Joe Ryan. And Charles was like, you know what? I want to have a kid with you too. And Lori is like, well, there's one right there. So they offered to adopt JJ from Kay. And Kay liked Lori a lot. She seemed like a good mom to Tylee and Colby, who are her older kids. And she just thought that the type of environment that they had at Lori and Charles's house would be better for JJ, who eventually was diagnosed with autism. So he had a lot of needs for stimulation and emotional swings, and they decided to allow the Vallows to adopt him. So they were with Kay and JJ was with Kay and Larry from July 2012 until February 2013, and then he was living with the Vallows, and they changed his name from Kanan to JJ. And while Lori was JJ's mom, Kay said that she saw her being nothing but doting and loving and a good mom to him. And then on top of that, it was a huge thing for Kay that she saw Lori reinforcing with JJ, like, that's your grandma, Kay, and that's your grandpa, Larry. And JJ seems to be really happy with her. But then, at some point, JJ stopped FaceTiming Grandma and Grandpa as much as he used to. And then she got a FaceTime from JJ where, you know, he normally would hold the tablet where he's like filming the ceiling. So they would like, okay, we can only see the ceiling, JJ. He's like, ah, grandma. And that's super cute, but he didn't understand the concept, and I wouldn't expect him to understand the concept that you need to have the camera facing you. He's just like, I'm running around with my grandparents. So adorable. And that was typical. That was the routine. But the last time she FaceTimed with JJ was August 2019. So he'd been living with Lori and Charles for 6 years, almost. A little more than 6 years. But it seemed like someone else was holding the iPad for him during this FaceTime session. And he seemed really upset. And it was only a 35-second FaceTime, because it seemed like as soon as they started to get into talking, hi, how are ya? Then somebody gestured, because he's not holding the iPad, someone else is. Somebody from whoever's holding the iPad gestured or something. You need to cut this out. So JJ looked at, okay. Gotta go, mama. Gotta go, papa. And she imitates him just like that. And that was it. That was the last time that she'd heard from JJ. August 2019. And we'll get to this, but Kay later, she asks for a welfare check. And I've got the date here, but it doesn't matter because we're going to get to it. Oh, you know what? It was, where is it? Welfare check, November 5th. So she doesn't talk to her grandson for 2 months. Welfare check. Where's my grandson? She's a good grandma. Well, I'm going to move on now to the third witness. And this guy has a lot of information. You know why? Because he's the fucking detective. Let's go. Ray Hermosillo. He is tired of this shit. This guy has been laboring over this case for far too long. Lock this bitch up. Lock up Lori Vallow. He's tired of it. This is a photo of him from the preliminary hearing. And he's a badass. He's an absolute badass. So I think if it wasn't for him, we probably wouldn't have what we have. So let's get into what he's got to share. This is day 2, by the way. And yeah, there's no way I'm going to be able to do a whole week in one sitting. I'm not editing these. I'm not, these are one take recordings. Let's go. I got my outline. All right. So, Ray Hermosillo. I think I'm just going to put his timeline up now. Here's his timeline. He made this. He made this. So we already talked about Charles getting shot. That was in July. And ever since Brandon got shot at, that's October 2nd, Brandon got shot at, Ray Hermosillo has been all over this case. You know why? Because the Jeep that shot at him was registered in his county, Rexburg PD. He's a detective for them. So he went all the way out to Gilbert to figure this stuff out with Arizona's group. But anyway, he located the Jeep during intermittent surveillance, where he caught photos of Chad and Lori walking into their Idaho apartment. Chad, do you mean Charles? No, I mean Chad. Yeah, there was an affair. So he caught pictures of them. He didn't see Tylee or JJ. This is in November. Okay. So then, of course, I just mentioned, Kay requested a welfare check for JJ on the 25th. Oh, on the 5th. I'm sorry. Misspoke. So, in response to that, Ray Hermosillo and another detective went to the location where Alex Cox, Lori's brother, and Chad Daybell were hanging out at, and they asked about JJ. And Alex and Chad acted really like secretive. They were like, I don't know what you're talking about. And Alex ended up saying that JJ was with Kay. But Kay was the one who requested the welfare check, Alex! You're messing everything up! Anyway. So, Ray Hermosillo asked, where was Lori? And they said, oh, her apartment. So they went to her apartment, which was apartment 175 in this area. It's an apartment complex. They went over there, but no one answered. And then, as they're leaving the premises of apartment 175, Detective Hermosillo saw Chad Daybell walking around again. He went, hey. And he asked Chad, how do you know Lori anyway? And this is the detective that took pictures of them together going into an apartment together. So he was spying on them. He knows that he knows her well. And Chad goes, I hardly know her. And Ray Hermosillo is like, right. Except I know you got married. See, 11-5. Chad and Lori married in Kauai. Okay? We have dates for these things. So, I know you know her. You married the bitch. What you talking about? So then Chad was like, oh, yeah, I just initially said I didn't know her because I thought you were accusing me of something. So then Ray Hermosillo was like, can I have her phone number? And Chad gave up her phone number. So, okay. They ended up calling her, Detective Hope, who I hope we hear from at some point. Ended up calling her and she agreed to talk with them. And this was weird. There's body cam footage of him talking with her. And when they questioned Ray Hermosillo about it, the defense team objected on the basis of hearsay. And the prosecution was like, what do you mean? It's a video. He watched the video. He could say what the video said. And they're like, but it's a recording of a conversation that he wasn't a part of. So they just moved on. It wasn't that, I don't think the objection was actually sustained, but the prosecution was like, whatever. I don't want to appeal. I don't want to deal with them appealing this case. So let's just move on, let them have it. But they got a search warrant for Lori's apartment. So, reminding you, this is all because JJ is reported missing by Kay, who requested a welfare check. So, and that was November 5th. But now we get a search warrant, cool, on Lori's apartment and 2 other apartments that are associated with Alex Cox. They're registered under Alex Cox for some reason. So, they go to Melanie B's apartment, which was apartment 174, completely empty. What are you guys doing? And then apartment 107, also completely empty. What did you guys rent these apartments for under Alex Cox's name if you're not going to use them? But then 175, which is apparently where Lori was staying, in Arizona, looked lived in. There was kids stuff. There was little like suitcases. JJ had a thing about collecting suitcases. I think it had something to do with the fact that his mom was always moving. You know, they would travel, but they would move a lot. So I think JJ felt something soothing about having a lot of suitcases, like he was ready, you know. I bet it was something like that, something adorable. There were a bunch of preparedness kits, preparedness bags, you know. They would have like 72-hour kits in them, food and water. But all the closets they weren't empty because they had hangers, but they didn't have any clothes. All of their closets had empty clothes hangers. No clothes anywhere. So that was weird. And then there were a bunch of guns and army knives in the garage. By the way, the defense objected to relevancy in a murder case. Also in the garage, a Walmart bag full of rope and duct tape. And no one objected to relevance. I will say, if you're gonna murder someone, don't buy those things at the same time. Right? Anyway. And they found some stuff that Chad Daybell had written in Lori's apartment. He apparently doesn't know her. And then Alex Cox's passport, which was up to date, you know, just some stuff. So that's all fun and games. Very interesting finds. Lori never filed a missing children's report. Ray Hermosillo was able to verify that because he would have known. So Ray Hermosillo pretty much did it. He alerted the public that these children were officially missing on December 20th. So December 20th. I'll leave this up. I think it's helpful for this part because there's a lot of things that happen. So, mind you, we think, based off of evidence that Ray Hermosillo had found, that Tylee and JJ probably died on these dates. So the last proof of life for Tylee was September 8th, and the last proof of life for JJ was September 22nd. They're both photos of them. So the last photo taken of Tylee was at Yellowstone, and the last photo taken of JJ was him on a couch. So they've probably been dead since September 2019. That's all we know at this point. So we're in September, they're dead, and then all the way down here, we're in November. So they've already been potentially dead for a couple of months, and then finally in December, Ray Hermosillo reports to the public that these children are absolutely missing. And you're not gonna believe, and if someone can explain this to me, why it took this long to finally get a search warrant for Chad Daybell's property, I'm all ears. I've been trying to figure this out. I'm probably just missing it or not Googling something correctly, but that's outside knowledge anyway. We're in the trial now. So in the trial, Ray Hermosillo finally gets a search warrant for Chad's house in Idaho, in Rexburg, Idaho, where apparently like 95% of the population is Mormon. Oh yeah, I haven't even mentioned, everyone in this case is Mormon. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. They're all Mormons. And not all of them are normal Mormons. Brandon so far is the only normal Mormon. And I will, from here on out, refer to normal Mormons as Mormals. But Chad is not a Mormal. So we are finally getting a search warrant for Chad's house. June 9th, 2020. These kids had potentially been dead for 9 months. So we finally have a search warrant. And guess who answers the door at Chad's house? Hello. We have a search warrant. It's Mark Daybell, who I don't have a picture of. It's Chad's son, and he's just like with a bowl of cereal. What are you doing here? And the detectives are like, we have a search warrant. Is your dad here? He's like, I'll go wake him up. wakes up his dad, Chad. Chad asked, "Can I speak with my attorney? Are we allowed to leave? Do we need to stay?" And they're like, "Whatever you want, but we're gonna search the whole house." So Chad calls his attorney, and the attorney asked to speak with the investigators, but they were like, "Talk to the prosecutors later," which is kind of a hot take right there. You know, we're not talking to you. Talk to the prosecutors later. Yeah, I liked that response. That's probably pretty normal, but I feel like that's the first time I've noticed them doing that. Anyway, moving on. So then Chad goes out to, you know what? I skipped something here. Lori is in jail at this point because Ray Hermosillo was a badass, and he went out to Kauai and personally served Lori with a court order to produce her children on January 25th, 2020. And she failed to do so, so she was arrested in February for not producing them. So she's in jail at this time, and Chad's like, my son's really addicted to cereal, and I sleep in late, living in Idaho. And he gets a phone call from her while she's in jail, and he's like, "Can I take this phone call?" So he goes out to his truck, and he answers the phone, and he doesn't tell them he's talking to Lori, but he does. He talks to Lori, and we have a recording of this phone call, and it is freaking hilarious. I'll read it later. But anyway, the detectives are searching the house, but they notice while he's in the car on the phone with someone, he keeps looking over his shoulder in a certain direction. And they figured out, based off of where they were standing, they could kind of tell where he was looking. He's looking in the yard. And he's looking towards the pet cemetery. So the detectives are like, "Let's start digging." So they start digging. And Ray Hermosillo, I'll show you again. This guy personally got on his hands and knees and sifted through the fire pit, and he dug in the pet cemetery. They smelled human decomposition, and he found pieces of bones in the fire pit. And this is really gruesome. His description of their process is really gruesome, so I'm going to minimize what I describe here, but thank you, Ray Hermosillo. So they found pieces of bone and bits of flesh in the fire pit, and they found JJ buried under a tree near Chad's pond. He was wearing red pajamas with a white plastic bag around his head and several layers of duct tape from his chin to his forehead. His arms were folded across his chest and bound with duct tape. His feet were bound with duct tape as well, and he had a blue and white child's blanket put on top of him. He had pre-mortem bruising on his arms, and then inevitably he was identified by, at first, Detective Hermosillo based off of photos, and then confirmationally identified by Brandon at the morgue. So they found JJ. Sucks. And then Tylee was found in the pet cemetery. And Ray described meticulously digging up pieces of her flesh and bones with his gloved hands. She was too decomposed to have a cause of death determined, and pieces of her skull and flesh was smushed into a burnt plastic bucket. So, horrifying. But Chad saw them going through the yard, and he had gone over to his daughter's house, who lived down the street just a little ways. I heard the word catty corner, and I'm in my head, like, dyslexically trying to figure out where that is. But she lived catty-corner to him, and he had gone over to her house, and as they started finding the bodies, Chad was reportedly leaving his daughter's house at a high rate of speed. He literally tried to run away. Yeah, good job, Chad. Let's see Chad again. What could he run away from, eh? Right? I said that wrong, but what could he run away from? Getaway driver. So I'm moving on. Amazing. The fact that he tried to run away. Anyway. Also, I want to point out a couple of things. I'm mostly done with Ray Hermosillo's. Yeah, I am done with Ray Hermosillo's testimony, but I just want to point out, what's it like to be Mark? You're living with your dad. I also heard it's his son-in-law, so forgive me, I might. But Mark, you're living with your dad or your dad-in-law. And you're just like, sounds like he worked out a lot or something. He was up earlier than Chad, and he's eating cereal. Not that cereal's the most healthy thing in the world, but he's just, and detectives knock on your door, and everything's been fine. You're a mormon, and everything's normal, and I don't know. I'm in Idaho. Everyone else I know is also a mormon, and detectives are at your door, and you're like, it's supposed to go the other way around. I'm supposed to come to your house and tell you about, have you heard of your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? But instead, they're knocking on his door, and he's like, what? Do you want some cereal? I'm not used to these situations because I'm a mormon. But then you gotta wake up your dad. Dad, they have a search warrant for your house. This is really awkward for me. I'm a mormon. And Chad's like, shit, I gotta call my attorney. You have an attorney? Yeah, and your dad's acting all weird. What's going on? And then they start digging up bodies? What is that like? How do you... I don't think I could sleep for 3 days after something like that. You were living there, and there's bodies, and you have no idea because you're a mormon. But, whew, yeah, I don't know what it's like to be Mark. Anyway, so the other thing I wanted to point out, and if you listened to the trial or read anything about the trial, you know this happened. Lori, mind you, the person accused of murdering her children. This isn't one of the ones that she was accused of conspiracy to commit murder on. She's accused of actually murdering Tylee and JJ. When they were talking about like their bodies and everything, they took a lunch break, and when they came back from the lunch break, she apparently had been very emotional, and I think it was Mr. Archibald, the same one who gave the opening statements, but he said, my client wishes to waive her presence for the remainder of the testimony today. He used words like fragile state of mind and mental health concerns. Oh, poor lady. No, Lori. You're gonna have to listen. Thankfully, the judge has been extremely fair, and he was awesome for this part, because he was like, no, you can't leave. You have to listen to this. Lady, please. I just can't believe it took him 9 months to get a warrant for Chad's property. Anyway. Huge shout out to Crime Talk, who's been posting the audio every day faster than anyone else on YouTube. That's the only way I've been able to keep up with the trial. Keeping up is a long and forgotten dream now, because I still have to go through everyone else's testimony from week 1, and then I can finally start taking real live notes on week 2, and then maybe I can listen to week 3 before week 4. So I have a lot of work to do. But yeah, Ray Hermosillo was awesome. Thank you, Ray Hermosillo. I really appreciate you. I think everyone really appreciates you. When I see YouTube comments about this guy, it's nothing but love. You know, we can tell from his voice that he took this case extremely seriously, probably more seriously than was within his jurisdiction. I don't know how to say this more correctly, but I mean, he did so much for this case, and this case went way out of his city, you know, because he's a Rexford, Idaho detective, and this involved Hawaii, and this involved Gilbert, Arizona, and he was hard stuck on this case. So big props to Ray Hermosillo. And I don't think I missed anything. Yeah, cool. Well, I will post the day 3 and 4, and maybe I can squeeze 5 into one video. Who knows? I might be able to. I probably not, because I'm gonna start explaining how these Mormons are not Mormons anymore, and it gets really weird. But okay, thanks for watching.